Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Doorway to Nightmare number 1 through 5, a DC comic published in 1978 that unfortunately only ran 5 issues. It fell victim to the DC implosion, which happened right around this time. I should say that this is from the collection, the Andy DeAngelis Memorial Collection within the Academy's library here, and it's the reason why he owned these. I know this is because he loved Michael Kaluta so much, and as you can see, every cover is by Michael Kaluta. That was the one constant creatively in this title. And Andy, he had so many Michael Kaluta covers in his collection. I doubt he even cared about the insides as much as anything by Michael Kaluta. So, God, these are gorgeous. Definitely the reason to buy these. There's some nice stuff in these comics, but these covers are so worth the price of admission. It's just like, especially because these comics are dirt cheap. Nobody cares about these. So you can buy them cheap just for the covers. It's worth it. So let's crack these open. This is a very kind of interesting comic. I was surprised when I read these today. I was, they're different than like the normal DC mystery titles. First of all, it featured one character. Each issue is one story featuring the same character, Madame Xanadu. I believe this is the introduction of Madame Xanadu. They created her for this title. She's had a few titles within the DC universe over the years, and she's still a character there. Just gotta say, look at this cover. God, the look on her face. This, talk about seductive. This is amazing. Michael Kaluta covers are so good. I've said this before, and there probably is one, but I want a book of just all of his 70s covers. So we start off here. Madame Xanadu has this little, shop in the middle of Greenwich Village, which I thought was interesting, because so does Doctor Strange. He lives in Greenwich Village. I wonder if these two get together and, have coffee or have sex with each other. Who knows? But they have a lot in common. This is written by David Michelinie and pencils and inks by Val Mayerick. In the late 70s, Val Mayerick wasn't doing as much as he used to do in the mid-70s. So this is really nice to see a full Val Mayerick job. And edited by Joe Orlando. I guess that's kind of important. He was kind of in charge of all the mystery titles. And it does seem like the mystery titles are a cut above your average dopey superhero comic from the time. Like, at this time, there was just terrible guys writing and drawing like The Flash and Superman. They're just terrible comics, like made for 4-year-olds. But these are almost like mature comics, almost like pre-Vertigo. The title of the first story is Doorway to Nightmare. So here we see Madame Xanadu. She's one hot tamale. She's a Romany woman. That's all. We don't know much about her, but we know they mention that she's Romany. She has all these jars, these mysterious jars. As the issues progress, we kind of get a sense that they're like maybe people's souls are in there or something. We don't really find out, though, in these first 5 issues, but it is a constant enigma throughout this series. And she's like the master of the tarot. So this woman walks in one day. This is really nice Val Mayerick art, by the way. Really sharp for him. So some of his early 70s stuff, you can get a little rough in panels, but this is a really just controlled Val Mayerick art. This happens in almost every issue. Someone walks in and says, I don't even know why I came in. Something compelled me to walk in your door. So this woman, Cindy Barnes, she kind of walks in. Another shtick of this comic is, Madame Xanadu always knows their name, and even before they tell her, and seems to have an idea of what their problem is. So everyone's all like, how'd you know that? What? So Cindy Barnes tells Madame Xanadu her story. She was a young actress who came to New York City with stars in her eyes. She met this playwright, and they started romancing each other. And He gave her a role in his play. It did well. Her star was rising, and their love was strong, and things were going great. Everything was hunky-dory with her. But then there was a shadow on their paradise. This one woman who he's known for years, Erica. She basically was the fly in the ointment. And then all of a sudden, as she's telling her Madame Xanadu the story, this woman knocks on the door, and it's Erica. And Erica says, "Oh, I couldn't help but see you when I walked past this window. Hey, Cindy, you want to go catch some lunch?" And she's all like, "Get out of here. I'd like to grab your red-headed minx. I'm sorry, you red-headed minx. I'd like to grab your throat." So she says, "Oh, okay, whatever. I can't believe you're falling for this hoodoo." So Cindy's very upset at this woman. And yeah, she's the source of the trouble. Her boyfriend started hanging out with her more, Erica. And all of a sudden, her boyfriend started being like acting weak and shaky, hanging out with her creepy friends, blowing up at her whenever she asked about what the hell's going on. And then one night, she kind of followed him and looked in the skylight and saw him like making out with Erica. But even more than her jealousy, sadness that he's making out with this, she's losing him to this woman, it's just the fact that she's worried about him. Something's going on with his head, and she knows that these people are responsible. Some really nice Valmeric stuff going on here. I'm definitely, not the hugest Valmeric fan. I think he's flawed. He's not one of my favorites, but I like his stuff a lot more than, a lot of guys back then in the 70s. He was doing something more interesting, like kind of in that Jim Starlin, P. Craig Russell, Paul Gulacy level of stuff going on. So Cindy goes to see Brad. That's his name, the boyfriend. He's drinking. He's totally being a jerk. Not like he was before he started hanging out with Erica and her friends. And he tells her, he says, Erica's dying. And she turned to the metaphysical when medical science couldn't help her. She found a way of restoring her damaged cells through an ancient process involving soul energy. Unfortunately, that process requires a donor. So he kind of admits that he's been, donating his soul energy to her. And it's his old friend, so he's like, hey, I'm saving her life. I got to do this. So Cindy runs away. She's like, damn you, Brad Jacobs. So Madame Xanadu goes to visit Cindy Barnes, wearing a barely Comics Code approved negligee here. And all of a sudden, the steam from her teapot turns into this really well-drawn demon here. Madame Xanadu quickly dispels the demon with her mojo. And she basically puts it in this little globe, this glass globe. So Madame Xanadu says, I got a plan. We're going to take care of this. So they go to the place where Cindy saw Erica making out with Brad. It's almost like where all those creeps hang out. And they're doing this ceremony. Erica's dressed up like she's some ancient princess or queen. And it looks like Brad is just being drained with this glass pyramid hovering over them. Some really nice art here from Valmeric. So it turns out that she is not really Erica. She is Eric Hotman. Eric Hatman. Eric Hotman, apparently the daughter of Tutankhamun. And I guess she contracted cancer in 4500 BC. So ever since, She's been using this proportional pyramid power. That was a big thing in the 70s, that pyramids could give you energy, almost like the people who like crystals, you know. And the disease was checked. However, every few hundred years, she needs an influx of soul energy. I like that panel there. I like this whole page. It's really nice Valmeric art. This page too. So basically, she's draining poor Brad. When she's done, after this last kiss, he's going to be basically a vegetable. So Cindy tries to break through, and I guess the pyramid energy is keeping her from breaking through. I like this. There's another interesting panel here with the shade, the shadow, I meant to say. And this is another thing Madame Xanadu does. People will be like, Madame Xanadu, you're like the sorceress, help me. And she's like, I'm sorry, in this matter, my abilities are limited. I'm afraid I can only advise you. She does this a lot. So it's kind of interesting. She's a different kind of hero. She's almost like a therapist who's like, I can't do everything for you. I can advise you, but you have to take care of your problem yourself. So she says her advisement to her is the crystal pyramid. Take care of it. If it was to be removed, it would probably help things, you know. So she shatters the pyramid, and she grabs Brad, and now Madame Xanadu steps in, and we see Eric Hartman. She totally dissolves. This looks barely skirting the Comics Code's rules here. That's pretty gnarly for a Comic Code comic. I also do like these colors from, I think it's Liz Barube. She colored this one. Yeah, Liz Barube was a popular 70s colorist in DC. So it looks like it's a happy ending. Brad and Cindy are going to continue their romance and have a good life. Epilogue, 3 days later. Brad and Cindy are walking by Madame Xanadu's shop, and they go inside. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, they assumed that Madame Xanadu died in this fire, because the whole loft went on fire, killing all of these, whatever, acolytes or whatever they are. And they assumed she died. So they walked by her shop just to be like, oh, there she is. There's her old shop. And of course, they're dumbfounded to see that she's in there. Totally fine. And we also see that she has a jar with a lock of the red hair of Eric Hartman. So, a little clue. She basically, it's kind of like their soul. I don't know what the jars are. So their letter page in this comic, tarot readings, it's very interesting how it's barely any letters. Until the 5th issue, we don't even see a letter. And they even say this is intentional. They basically just want to talk about the tarot and do other things. Treat the letter page as not a letter page, just additional material so you can enjoy the comic. So this is a little material about the tarot. We're going to see a lot more later on. I should have found out who drew this. It's probably in the Grand Comics database. But pretty nice logo for the tarot readings. So that's number 1. And here's number 2. Brought to you with no commercial interruptions. Once again, look at this fucking Kaluta cover. Oh, man. Fucking great. So now we got a totally different creative team. We got Jerry Conway writing. Vicente Alcazar, artist. And I really like this Alcazar art. I mean, it's, yeah, just like Valmeric. It's a little flawed here and there, but it's just really interesting compared to a lot of comics coming out at the time. Just this crowd scene. I like all these weird faces. It seems like he's not that good at drawing kids, though. A lot of the kids look like adults who are just shrunken down. So we see there's a festival going on in Greenwich Village. And now we meet this couple, Douglas Holt and Melissa Mann, these two. She wants to go home. She's not digging this festival. He seems more happy-go-lucky. He says, hey, I know what'll cheer you up. Do something interesting. We'll go to this fortune teller shop. Of course, it's Madame Xanadu. Once again, she knows their names. Look at that great panel of her. Alcazar's really good at drawing Madame Xanadu. So it turns out that Melissa is like a physicist. And she's very, rational and scientific. But she does, do the tarot. She agrees to do it just as a lark. And Madame Xanadu reads the cards and says you face mortal harm unless you turn from the path you have chosen. Leave the pursuit of science, Melissa Mann. It can only end in disaster. It seems kind of weird. That's her advice, is like, quit your whole career as a physicist. She's offended. She thinks that Douglas, the boyfriend, put her up to it. This is all a scam. Because Douglas has been kind of like, oh, I wish you didn't have such a demanding job. And she storms out and she says, I never want to see you again. So now Douglas tells Madame Xanadu the story. Man, some of these faces, Vicente Alcazar is really good. That's a really cute Madame Xanadu. So basically, he's kind of her boyfriend, but not really. She's been started working with this older scientist. And, at first he was just a father figure, but because he's just as devoid of emotion as Melissa is, they're kind of a perfect pair, and they start a romantic thing. And Douglas knows this. He's still trying to get in, but he's lost her. And Madame Xanadu says, well, if you really love her, you're the only one who can help her. And I shall help in any way I can. So now we see Melissa and that older scientist guy. Hampton is his name. And they're working on this new project that will demolish the barriers between dimensions. He's very excited. He's also being all kissy face with her, and she's all like, please, Hampton, you know how I feel about sentimentality. So she's a real cold fish, this one. And so they activate this machine they've been working on for months, and the doorway opens between dimensions. But basically, it seems to just rip a portal to hell open, and all these demons start flowing through. These are weird-looking demons. Look at their kind of goofy little bodies, pear-shaped bodies. So Holt can't take it. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Holt. Hampton. He's just losing it. He's the irrational scientific guy, and these demons are like, it looks like they're giving him kisses and stuff. They're like, come here, you. And then all of a sudden, Douglas shows up, takes a fire extinguisher, and smashes the computer. And so he saves the day because the dimensional portal closes. All of a sudden, it seems like Melissa has a change of character. And God, this is totally just like Neil Adams. I think Alcazar, yeah, he did. He worked at Continuity Associates with Neil Adams. So actually, this could be a Neil Adams inked panel, because they were always helping each other out. Who knows? But all of a sudden, she's all like, hey, take me out to dinner. And she's definitely acting out of character. She's ordering steak, even though she's a vegetarian. I'm sure you know where this is heading. She's very forward and passionate. So Douglas has got to admit, he's a little worried about this change of character, but he's thrilled because, he's loved her for so long, and now she seems to be loving him back. But then the next night, she just ditches him for some other dude. Just callously, just right in front of him. Starts smacking on some dude and goes home with him. He's up all night calling her, worried. When he comes to the scientific lab the next day, she's still wearing the same dress she was wearing the night before. And she's just like, you don't own me. Nobody owns me. And then she turns to Hampton and plants a kiss on him just to make him jealous. But then she goes crazy. And she's just like, don't ever say my name again. And she attacks Douglas. But he when they both fall, she becomes unconscious. Another nice panel there. So Hampton says, okay, I know this doctor at Bellevue Psychiatric Ward. So she's at the Bellevue Psychiatric Ward, and Madame Xanadu says, she's obviously possessed by a devil. One of those devils possessed her when they came through the portal. It's kind of interesting there, that kind of choppy inking. So Madame Xanadu goes to Bellevue with Douglas and Hampton, and she performs an exorcism. Yeah, this gets really interesting here. The art. It's like heavy blacks. Much like less illustrative, more like chiaroscuro. So it works. The demon comes out of Melissa, and then it dives right for Douglas Holt. But of course, Madame Xanadu stops it. And I think she puts the demon in a little jar. And once again, it looks like Doug and Melissa are going to be happy. There's another great panel of Madame Xanadu. Here's that tarot readings. Yeah, this one's totally about the tarot. Really extensive. This ridiculous nonsense. It's so dumb. Sorry. For those of you who believe in the tarot, just my opinion, it's stupid. I hate that shit. It's like astrology to me. So now we have Doorway to Nightmare number 3. Oh, God, look at this cover by Michael Kaluta. Fuck. So good. Really nice. So now we got a new team. And this is a very strange team. Plot by Bill Kunkel, with special thanks to Joyce Katz. Dialogue by Roger McKenzie, longtime writer at Marvel, mostly at Marvel, but he did a lot of stuff at DC when he started out. Art by Rick Estrada and Romeo Tangal. I looked up Bill Kunkel. He was like one of those guys. It's so interesting. There's all these writers who just seem to do like 10 to 20 stories for DC's mystery titles in the 70s and then never did anything ever again. It's, I guess just DC mystery stories would just hire anybody off the street. If you had a decent script, they'd be like, yeah, we'll put that in House of Secrets. And they didn't stick around, though, these guys. So once again, we start off typical Madame Xanadu fashion. It's raining outside. Some woman finds herself drawn to come into Madame Xanadu's shop. Her name is Margot Hammer. And of course, Madame Xanadu's been expecting her. So now she tells Madame Xanadu her story. And she talks about how she moved to New York City to make some money. And she had a really tough time at first. But then she finally got a job. And even the hiring agency, the employment agency, warned her about this job. People who had gotten jobs at this place not only didn't like it, some of them just disappeared. So she goes to this place to meet her future employer, possible future employer. And it's very ornate and just very opulent. So she's kind of in awe. This guy gets up from behind a desk and she's surprised that he's not some old, doddering old man. He's actually a very handsome young man. And so he says, I would like us to have dinner at midnight. I have business to attend to now. They stay up all night chatting. She finds herself quite drawn to this man. And his name's Victor. And of course, right around so first of all, he doesn't eat a damn thing while she's eating her dinner. He just drinks wine or something. And then at dawn, right before dawn, he says, oh, I must retire. I'm getting very tired. So already it's pretty obvious what's going on. So then she began, working 9 to 5 there, totally alone. He was never there. Until one night she worked late, past dusk, and she saw this giant vampire bat outside. And then a minute later, Victor walks in. And then pretty soon their romance starts. she starts falling in love with them. If you guys notice, I was surprised. Madame Xanadu is this kind of interesting, it's almost like a gothic romance where it's definitely horror, supernatural, but each one is pretty much a romance comic. At the core, it's almost always a woman who runs into Madame Xanadu and is having some problem of the heart. And not only is the supernatural thing fixed, but the romance is fixed as well. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, wow, what a neat take. Like, romance comics were pretty much dead by the late 70s. But, there's still probably teenage girls, young girls who want to read that kind of comic. Just something about love. And, well, some boys too, but mostly girls were the audience for romance comics. And this kind of tried to give them a little bit of both. So I just, kind of a neat idea. So eventually, this woman, Miss Hammer, whatever, I can't remember her first name already, damn it. She basically says, Madame Xanadu, what am I going to do? So Madame Xanadu, she's no idiot. She knows what's going on. She says, oh, tell him to talk. I want to talk to this guy. So she says, if you really love me, Victor, will you please do this? Please talk to this woman, Madame Xanadu. I need to get to the bottom of this. So he agrees to go. And of course, Madame Xanadu is like, hey, I know you. I saw you 400 years ago in Brussels, remember? So she basically says, you're going to screw up her life. And, what happens when she gets old or when you get tired of her, You're going to hurt her. And he says, no, she's not like the others. She's so warm and alive. Were it possible that I could love her? So it's kind of interesting, this view of the vampire is basically, they're just kind of emotionless. And, he obviously feels something for Margot. He likes being around her, but he says that if it were possible, I would love her. He can't really love her. So then he makes the mistake, this was pretty dumb, to take her to one of his vampire parties. And he still hasn't told her that he's a vampire. She doesn't know. So there's all these vampires, and of course they almost spill the beans at one point, and he's all like, oh, no, tut, let's not talk about that here. But then, and then at one point they serve her a goblet of blood. She just thinks it's wine. Victor freaks out and attacks the waiter, almost kills him. So it's just like ridiculous. Like, why would you bring her to this place unless she knows, Then there's this mean vampire lady who takes her aside and basically tells her just to crush her soul. She's like, yeah, he's a vampire. We're all vampires. She actually says, I did it for pleasure, the pleasure of violating an innocent mind, and it was exhilarating. She's quite a character. So as they're leaving, Margot actually says, I don't care. I want to be with you forever. Basically, I want you to turn me into a vampire. This doesn't faze me at all. So now they go to Madame Xanadu's. And it's pretty much they stay up all night. And Victor explains it to her. He says, we don't live, really. We vampires, we just endure. Being a vampire sucks. So she offers her neck. Because she's not to be swayed. She's like, I don't care. I want to be with you forever. And he's going to bite her. And it's almost like he's been stalling all night just for this. I like this little tear of blood. A blood red tear. I think I forgot to mention, that's the name of this comic, Blood Red Tear. And he knew that morning was going to come and it would kill him. Because he knew he couldn't make the choice himself. He was so fond of her. So he knew the only way to save her was for him to die. And then as we leave, we see a jar with, looks like his face is in it. I don't know if it's shrunken or that just represents his soul. So once again, this mystery of the jars is a little bit more about that. This tarot reading is kind of silly. It's Bill Kunkel does this interview with a vampire that he knows to ask him about, what it's like to be a vampire. Do the movies get it right? There's something interesting that he puts in the story, and also in this. He mentions that vampires like music really loud because their emotions are blunted. They don't really feel anything unless music's really loud. I've never heard of as that being a characteristic of a vampire. Just that was weird that he was trying to add to the lore with some dumb thing like that. Here's number 4. Oh, God. I shouldn't even mention it, but look at this fucking cover. God, I love Michael Kaluta. So now we got, this is written by Catherine B. Andrews and Stuart Hopen. 2 more writers who basically did a handful of stories for DC Comics in the 70s. But in this case, Stuart Hopen didn't disappear. He did some stuff in the 80s for like Eclipse and Fantagraphics. He actually wrote Wandering Stars #1, which was Sam Keith's one of his earliest comic projects in the late 80s. But look at the artist, guys. Pencils and inks by Johnny Craig. Johnny Craig must have been getting close to the end of his life here. Though actually we did see him in those Mystery in Space comics from the early 80s, so I guess he still had a few years left in him. But this is way better than that story in Mystery in Space, number whatever. This is there's some definitely interesting echoes to his great EC heyday, though you can see that his art is kind of deteriorated in a way. It's not as amazing. This is called Six Claws of the Dragon. We see this elderly Asian man, James Le Hao, and he's being attacked by this samurai mummy or just some warrior mummy, and in New York City. So now we see the police checking this out, finding out what the hell's going on. I guess at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the mummy of Princess Maria and her crypt guardian were stolen, along with 5 lamps, these ceremonial lamps. The 6th one has been missing, I guess forever. He's the detective, Nick Abrams. He looks at the scroll of what the Princess Maria looked like, and he's like, oh, she's so beautiful. And this guy says, evil women often are. According to legend, she was a sorceress. So, evil women are often beautiful, don't forget. So the lieutenant, Nicholas Abrams, he says, these lamps, the picture of these lamps, I've seen one of these before. And once again, he finds himself wandering into Madame Xanadu's parlor. He asks her some questions, tells her about the lamps. There's also this thing about how years ago, the mummy of Princess Maria, she had a 6-finger left hand, and when she was mummified, she was holding this jade kind of cube of incalculable value. One night, somebody chopped off her hand because apparently she wouldn't let go of the jade cube, and chopped off her hand and to get the jade. And then the next morning, it was back on. The hand was right back on where it was chopped off. So now back to the present. There's some weird things going on where Johnny Craig's trying to shade the person's eye, but it's it looks like a Dick Tracy villain. No, his eyes, there's way too much space around the eyes. Nobody's eyes are that close together. But I do like some of the layouts here. Kind of interesting. This is a very convoluted plot. So now we see, I guess he goes back to the scene of the crime. I guess it's all in the same night. And there's the body of that guy, James Howe. This woman's there named Lady Ann Karras, his oldest friend, and James Howe's daughter is there. I guess the coroner was there, And this woman, Lady Ann Carey, she says, I sent them away. He's like, how could you? And we realize she has hypnotic powers. So she basically tells him to go, puts him under a hypnotic spell and says, get out of here. The daughter instantly takes a shine to him, and he's smitten with her instantly. But he still goes because he's under this hypnotic command. So now, Lady Karis, basically, Madame Xanadu has the lamp, that sixth lamp. So she says, even though it's rightfully mine, Lady Karis, I should say, she offers Madame Xanadu money. She wants that lamp badly. She tries to hypnotize Madame Xanadu, but it doesn't help. So then the lieutenant goes to see the daughter. And he's pretending that he has to question her, but they go out to dinner. They have a romantic walk, and they end up smooching. And we see that she has a birthmark that looks like a wound on her wrist, as if her wrist was chopped off. We quickly realize, it's not much of a spoiler, that she's like the reincarnation of this princess from thousands of years ago, or hundreds of years ago. So then Madame Xanadu shows up at Nick's apartment, and she's like, hey, you've been with that daughter, haven't you? And then all of a sudden, he's attacked by the guy from the first page, the kind of guardian warrior mummy. It looks like he knocks Madame Xanadu out of the window. When Lieutenant Nick looks out the window, he doesn't see Madame Xanadu, though. All he sees is the mummy. And because it looks like he's dead. So while he was knocked out, something happened. It was, Madame Xanadu used her trickery, her sorcery. So the next day, he goes to Madame Xanadu's parlor, says, what the hell happened last night? Then he goes to hang out with the daughter, Sue. And he decides to take her mind off her dead father, take her to a disco. I like how Johnny Craig draws these people doing the bump. He was hip to the jive, I guess. I'm sorry, guys. I'm still really sick. Sorry you had to hear that. So, oh man, I hate this. So now we see that Sue, though, is getting her personality's changing. She has these fits of anger. And that night, she sneaks into the museum to steal some stuff, dressed up in this ancient garb. So basically, she's become that old princess. And when the lieutenant comes to get her, she slaps him and says, how dare you touch me? So she's really fully taken over by this ancient princess. So I guess, this is that Lady Karis lady. They're going to do a ceremony. That's why they needed all of the lamps. And it will permanently, erase Sue's personality. And the princess can fully take over her body. Now, this is kind of interesting here. This is like an old school artist like Johnny Craig. I don't think any 70s artist would do this. One of the younger artists. There's some nice panels with the rain here. So the lieutenant enlists Madame Xanadu to help him, and they're going to stop this ceremony because he loves Sue. And they do just that. And there's a happy ending once again with a panel of the protagonist kissing his love. Almost every issue ends like that. And that is not a pretty Madame Xanadu, Johnny Craig. That's Madame Xanadu's thing. She's got to be beautiful. She's got to be hot. So here's another goofy tarot readings page where this is from the Diary of Lady Anne Carris from 1957. So it's kind of interesting that they were doing this like what the Watchmen did, you know, having that background material that adds a dimension to the story, the actual comic story. But that's the last time we see that, because now here's the last issue, number 5. Another freaking gorgeous Michael Kaluta cover. God damn, that's good. So now we got Scott Edelman writer. That guy was he just never really did anything that great. Romeo Tangal is now penciling, and Vince Collette is inking. Surprisingly, I kind of like this art. This kind of looks like Ernie Colon to me. This is like some nice, clean, old school art. I mean, I love this logo and all this mist, green mist. This story is called Day of the Devils. The story starts off right on Madame Xanadu's street. We see these 3 street toughs. They're members, well, 2 of them are members of the gang, the Devils. Vic and some, I don't know what the hell his name is. Vic and Buck. And this new guy, Jim, it's basically his initiation. So they're like, you gotta kill this guy. This guy who owns a Chinese restaurant. Every night he takes a paper bag full of the day's receipts and takes it to the bank drop, and we're gonna mug him, but you're gonna do it as your initiation. Jim is not as into it as the other guys are. He's kind of very full of indecision. And he's basically saying, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this. I've never harmed anyone or stolen in my life, but I have to become a devil. It's the only thing I got left other than Anne. How we see his lady love Anne here. There's some Vince Collette in here that I actually like. Some of this inking, which is rare for me. So he goes to mug this old man from the Chinese restaurant, and this guy kicks his ass. I guess he's a brown belt in Tai Chi Chuan, which I've never heard of that martial art. So the other guys, Buck and Vic, attack. He makes short work of Buck, kicks his ass, but then Vic conks him on the head with a gun butt. So this old man's pretty scrappy. The whole time I'm reading this, I'm thinking, how much other stuff was in these panels that Vince Collette erased because he was too lazy to ink it. But some of this stuff almost has like a really nice, I don't know, just like a slick sheen to it, you know? So they all went away. As Jim runs away, he looks back and he sees Madame Xanadu just staring at him. Kind of freaks him out, so he takes off. Back at the Devil's Clubhouse, Vic is all like, hey, he's one of us now. He's a devil. There's this, like, basically, this gal who is in the Devils, or at least has sex with all of them. Her name's June, and she's all, like, flirting with him. Like, oh, you're a devil now. We should hang out more. And now we meet Anne. Now, Anne, even though she's hanging out with the Devils, she's a goody two-shoes. And she's just like, oh, I don't want you to be a devil. You got to stop this. It's going to warp your soul. And he's all like, you don't understand. I got to do this, honey. So she says, listen, will you meet this, a friend who can help us? Will you come with me tomorrow? And he agrees. Look at this weird shadowy thing here where he's trying to do the shadow. But that would never happen, no matter what light source you have, where there'd be no shadow here, and then it's just like it looks like a skeleton, a skull eye socket all of a sudden. Like somebody gouged his eye out. So Anne leaves for the night, and basically Jim stays and parties. And Anne's just crying. So the next day, it's another street fair in Greenwich Village. And the couple goes to see Madame Xanadu. He's a little reluctant to go inside, but he goes in and talks to her. She talks about their budding romance when they were in high school and how much they loved each other. But then Jim couldn't get into college. He dropped out of high school, and he just felt like a total loser. So that's why he figured, I got to be in the Devils. That's all I got. I have nothing in my life. I got to be somebody. She still loved him the whole time. That's why she started hanging out at the Devils, even though she doesn't fit in. She just wanted to keep an eye on him. And she's kind of disgusted by how cruel the Devils are. And then Jim starts talking to Madame Xanadu and even says, yeah, I don't really want to be a part of the Devils, kind of. But it just feels like I don't really enjoy it, but they are what life has dealt me. And I'll have to make do. And Madame Xanadu gives him this whole speech about how you're not just a piece of driftwood on the tossing seas floating helplessly. You can control your own destiny. Then she says, okay, me and Ann got to go in the next room and talk privately. And then Jim looks over and he sees this gold, like, vase, a jar. And he puts it in his jacket. And leaves with it. They get back to the Devil's Clubhouse. He pulls the jar out, shows it off to the guys, says, look what I just stole, guys. We'll make a lot of money from this. Ann is disgusted with him. She's like, she trusted us. I mean, we trusted her and she trusted us. I can't believe we did this. What Jim doesn't know is when he opens the jar, I guess this jar was housing an evil soul, which possesses him. He's a panel I like a lot, too. Looks like really high-level Jim Aparo or low-level Neil Adams. And all of a sudden, he's acting differently. He's like, listen, guys, I'm in charge now. They're all like, hey, newbie, you can't order us around. And he says, oh, yeah? And fucking incinerates these two guys with green flame. And then he all calls over June, the local shanty tramp of this club. And Ann runs away crying. So he basically has big plans. He says, we're going to assassinate Mayor Koch. Who's the mayor of New York City at the time. We're going to assassinate him and just cause a crazy, turn the city into chaos. And then we're just going to rob everything blind. But then Anne escapes. She's going to run to tell Madame Xanadu about the jar. And he says, we must stop her at all costs. She can't get to Madame Xanadu's. Look at this. This is some va-va-voom shit, man. Vince Coletta was good at that. He was always good at making women look kind of sexy. Kind of like Dick Giordano. And that's a really good panel right there. So she's running and running. The devils almost catch her, but she evades them. And then they conk her on the head. But she makes it to Madame Xanadu's house. I guess she's got some mystic spell around the place because when she closes the door, she's not worried about them breaking in. So once again, she says, you must be the one to save Jim. I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do to help. And then, I guess it's Madame Xanadu's doing, but she looks at Anne really strongly in the eye. And all of a sudden, Anne feels this power growing within her. We see her fist glowing. And when she goes outside to confront the devils, she basically blasts them all with this, like she has magic powers now. Jim, who's possessed by this evil spirit, he uses his powers against her, but they're not strong enough. And then she really zaps him. It engulfs Jim. The energy force from her fingers engulfs Jim and the world, it says. And then all of a sudden, we're back in Madame Xanadu's place the day before. Or that day. And Jim, the same exact dialogue. And Jim looks over at the jar, and this time, he ignores it and doesn't decide to steal it. And so now, Jim says, yeah, I think I'll take another crack at college. I think Ann's been right this whole time. And so that's the hoodoo that Madame Xanadu laid down. She just made time go backwards, so Jim didn't make the mistake. We see his devil's jacket in the rubbish heap, and he happily walks off with Anne, hopefully into a nice future, though he's probably not going to be able to afford college, and he'll probably end up just working at Arby's, like most people. Actually, it was the 70s. You could actually get a decent job back then. And here's the first time we actually have letters in the letter page. So there you go, guys. Doorway to Nightmare, number 1 through 5, 1978. Hope you guys like looking at it. I know it's not the best comics you've ever seen, but like I said, just for the covers alone, these are kind of worth it. But I kind of like these comics like this, where it's almost like, yeah, they're not quite there, but they're leading the way to a certain place. Because you can see, 10 years later, this is kind of like early Vertigo type stuff, where it's about people, adults, and emotions. It's more adult. It's not about just two guys pounding each other. So, kind of interesting to see this stuff. That's also how I feel about the DC War comics from the 60s and 70s, where it's like, yeah, this is not really for kids. Kids can enjoy it, but it's not a stretch to think that a literate adult can say, oh, this is a pretty good comic book, Okay, I'm rambling again. I keep doing this at the end of all my episodes. But hope you guys like looking at these with me. And once again, thanks to Andy D'Angelis, whoever you are, for giving us such a nice endowment of a nice big chunk to our library of great stuff. So, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.